Last week, I interviewed Shyla from Decorizing Your Life, and she is an amazing creative that is full of color. I absolutely love her style, and her latest project is her new creative space. She is in the process of pivoting her business by creating a shop where she'll be having other vendors in a creative space. This is a huge undertaking, and if you've ever thought about pivoting your business and creating a space like this, you definitely want to give that episode a listen. Now, in this week's episode, I am going to be reflecting on the past year of my small business. So, every December, I take a look at what I want to accomplish and where I want my business to grow. I also look at what goals I hit from the previous year and where I fell short. I do make sure to celebrate my wins, but I also want to analyze the goals that I may not have hit and figure out if I could have done something different. Maybe it's no longer a goal that I want to hit, or what have you. So, this is something that all small business owners should be doing. Are you incorporating this into your small business? Join me today as we dive into this topic.
Welcome to the Rescued and Upcycled podcast with weekly inspiration, tips on trying new techniques, and overall real talk about owning your own DIY business. Now, here's your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock.
Welcome back to Rescued and Upcycled. I'm your host, Sonnet Ellenbrook. I want to thank you all for joining me on my podcast. This is episode 40, you guys, and I can't believe we are winding down season 1 of my podcast. I have been doing this since mid-March, and the end of this year will be the end of season 1. And then I'm going to be kicking off season 2. So I have a lot in store for you guys in the new year. Now, if you guys are new here, I'm interviewing creatives or small business owners every other week. And I just love talking all things small business. So I'm hoping you guys that I've been inspiring you along with my other guest hosts. Now, in this week's episode, I really do want to reflect and chat about the past year of my small business. I talk a lot about setting goals for your business, and this is really key to any successful business, you guys. If you're already doing this or finally doing this, congrats. I applaud you because, guys, this is so huge. And I hear so often that small businesses aren't setting goals. Honestly, I would feel completely lost if I didn't have a roadmap of where I want to take my business. Think about if you were driving and you have no direction and you don't have a roadmap to figure out where you're going, you would be lost. That is exactly like it is with a small business. So goals are your roadmap, and that's really, that's how I think of goals. Just really how I'm going to get to my final destination. Now, keep in mind, there are both short term goals and long term goals. And where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's kind of funny because when I've been setting my goals, they've been a lot of short term goals, like the next year. I keep thinking, like, in a year, I want to do this. I kind of have like a vision of where I want to take it, but I've never really set that down on paper. My husband, I recently interviewed him on a podcast, and he actually asked me that question. Where do you see your business in 5 years, Sonnet? And it kind of like caught me off guard because I've never really sat down and put it on paper. And I've always had like, oh, I want to be, I want to kind of do this, or I want to kind of, well, I can't just want to kind of. I have to figure it out and roadmap it out. So that is a goal of mine this year as I'm setting goals for the new year. I am going to be taking a look at my 5 year goal, my 10-year goal. When do I ever want to officially like retire? I don't know. At this point in my life, I think I could do this forever. But you guys, really set, yourself some goals and dream big. Honestly, like, think big when you're setting these goals. But if I didn't do this, you guys, if I didn't set down, like specific goals that I want to accomplish each and every year, I would feel all Willy Wonka. I mean, honestly, I would feel like I was all over the board, not knowing if I was coming or going. So, what I do every single year, though, is in December. I sit down and I just start brainstorming. And like I said, I dream big. While I'm doing this, it's just kind of like a brain dump. I sit there and I just start writing things down. Like any thoughts I have, I just kind of just start jotting them all down. And then as I'm doing that, I'm also reflecting on the past year. And like this past 2024, I feel really good about 2024, you guys, and what I accomplished. So I also start reflecting on that. And I think about, all the things like, so, are some of the goals that I had set for 2024, are they, if I didn't reach them, are they even a goal still? Do I still want to accomplish that? Or was it just something, did my business pivot so much that that is not even a goal or even something I'm thinking about any longer? And maybe that's why I didn't hit that goal. Or did I take on too much? Or just did I not focus enough? I mean, I try to analyze all the different things. Now, this past year, I realized I tackled a lot of big goals, you guys. Typically, I like to try to tackle or stick to 1 to 2 big goals. And then I try to fill in with some medium goals and a lot of little small goals, like little baby steps to get me, to the next level. But the smaller goals aren't a huge undertaking. And with a big goal, you're going to find big goals take a lot of time. But this year, honestly, this past year, I decided, for whatever reason, I decided to go big, and I did. I went big. But the problem with these big goals is that they are very time consuming, which really leaves, little time to work on your smaller goals. You get so time consumed or, really consumed in these big goals and all the steps that go into accomplishing them that it completely consumes you and takes over your life. Truly takes over your life. Sometimes there are hurdles that you aren't aware of or you're not anticipating, which can delay a goal. And really be prepared for that. Be prepared for anything and everything when it comes to a big goal, because these are going to take an entire year, maybe 5 years to accomplish some of them. So just be prepared for the different hurdles that you might experience. Now, for me, reflecting back on this past year and thinking about what I accomplished, first and foremost, I am so proud of myself. I can honestly say I feel like I hit it out of the park. I really stuck to it, and there were times, and let me tell you, there were times and big hurdles and just all the different feels that could have stopped me in my tracks, and I could have veered off and not accomplished it. But I stuck with it, and I am so happy I did. So, first, you guys, my subscription box. In December of 2023, when I sat down with my membership group, like we always do, I officially put it on my goals that I was going to be shooting mid year to launch a subscription box. Now, this has been an idea I've had for a very long time, but I knew this was the year that I officially wanted to try to launch it. Now, I say try, but I'm like, nope, I'm doing it because I think as I was, pushing it around in my brain and trying to figure it all out, I kept on pushing it back. Oh, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. I'll really like sit down and think about it and I'll do it next year. And, honestly, I just knew this was the year that I wanted to do it. So in February of this year, I was sitting on the ice of Lake Winnebago. I was freezing my behind off when it all just came to me. I sometimes have the best ideas when I'm washing my hair in the shower or I'm sitting on the ice fishing. And I was sitting there, and like I said, it just came to me. I got so excited when I came up with this idea. But I realized at that very moment that I had to get moving if I wanted to kick it off in June. So on my goals, I had said mid year. I wanted to kick it off mid year. So, initially when I was sitting there and I'm like tossing different ideas around and it all came to me, I realized that there were so many steps that I had to put in place and things that I had to do to make this, a huge success. I couldn't just go and wing it. I had all these steps that I needed to accomplish in order to make it a success. And I knew I had to kick it into high gear in order to do that. So remember when I said these big goals were time consuming and would overtake your life? Yes, that's exactly what the subscription box did. Between February and May, all I did was think about the subscription box. So anytime I was eating, anytime I was sleeping, I mean, at any time, I was always like thinking about like the next step, or what am I missing? And I was writing down different lists, and I was ordering different supplies. So, everything, you have to like take into consideration everything when you are creating something that big. Now, it was definitely a big undertaking and it was a lot, but I didn't want to miss out on any of the details either, you guys. So if you think about it, it's always in the details. Every little detail can really make or break, like something like that. So I was trying to make sure every little detail of the subscription box was just perfect. So I officially launched it in June of this year. And after doing this for 7 months, I am officially starting to feel like I'm getting the hang of it. Of all the moving parts of running a subscription box business. And there's a lot, you guys. Um, but I think what I love most about doing this is curating each box and really inspiring all my subscribers. I love it. I love hearing their comments about when they open the box and how they feel. I love seeing all their beautiful creations and just inspiring them to create and think, unbox their creativity, as I like to say. So this box is getting better and better each and every month, you guys. And I love working with Royce from Roycycled Decoupage Paper, and I love working with Connie from The Painted Photographer. And if you don't know about my subscription box, they each curate and or create, I should say, two exclusive papers each and every month for my subscription box. And then I curate different colors based on what papers they design. And it has been just going so great. I add a little bonus item in into the mix of things, and then there's a YouTube video that goes along with the subscription box. So when you get the subscription box on your door, and it feels like Christmas morning, and you open it up, the first thing you see is a QR code, and you have early access to the video. So. Uh, I am just having so much fun doing this, and I am so excited to see where I take my box in 2025. But by far, that was one of my, big goals of 2024, I should say. So the second big goal, or another big goal that I was going to kick off in 2024, was my video podcast, which you guys are officially listening or watching right now. I initially slated this to actually happen in January. So I did a lot of my research in the like fourth quarter of 2023. So late 2023, I was doing a lot of research, everything I needed to know about creating a video podcast, from my microphone to lighting, to my backdrop. I mean, I was trying to figure it all out, how I was going to record it, all that good stuff. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And before you launch something big, like a big goal or like tackle a big goal, make sure you have all your ducks in a row, or as you're tackling it, you're writing all the information down and like researching it. Like something like the video podcast, I was not anticipating a little bump in the road, or a big bump, as I should say. So, unfortunately, I ran into issues with my home internet, and I was not anticipating this was going to happen. So, the podcast was temporarily backburnered. And like I said, you're just never prepared for hurdles or challenges that can be thrown at you. And after much finagling with different internet providers, I was finally able to launch my podcast in mid March. Now, even though I had done a ton of research on, hosting the podcast, the one thing I didn't know was that you needed a specific upload and download speed to tape a podcast. Um, which I had no clue. And so every time I hit that record button and I would be like, what in the heck is going? I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'm like, it's all wonky. It's not like taping a regular video. And that is why. Because the upload and download speeds, you guys. So I went with a different internet provider and it was mid-March versus January. So be prepared to pivot is, I guess, the best way to put it. So do not get so stuck where you feel like something has to be done by this date because you're going to get roadblocks, you're going to be veering another direction, or like hit a little bump in the road like I did. So um I'm so excited to say that this is episode 40 and mid-March was when I kicked it off initially. Yes, I wanted to do it in January so I had a full year in. It just didn't happen, and that's okay. It is okay. Nobody got hurt. Nothing bad happened because there was a month and a half, or was it 2.5 months that you didn't hear from me. And I'm slowly but surely growing my video podcast. So at that point though, when I added this, I was now adding not only my video podcast to the mix of things each week, but I also had my 2 YouTube videos. Um, the one thing I recommend is a good schedule. That is truly a key to being successful especially when you're juggling so many things. So get a good schedule in place and try to pre-tape ahead because life happens. So those are a couple tips that I would recommend. Now, in October of 2023, after Cranberry Fest last year, so it was last year, October, I made a really hard decision not to do Cranberry Fest after I had been doing it for years, you guys. So if you've been following me for a while, I bring you along the whole process. It's something I love doing. I loved Cranberry Fest. But unfortunately, after last year, and it was backbreaking. It was definitely a backbreaker. I had to haul everything in manually. I could not pull up to my spot. I was all by myself. My parents had their booth and they had to set up their entire booth. So we all manually brought everything in by hand. Um, and if you've been following, you'll know that it is a lot. It was a lot to bring in. And I feel like I'm confessing my sins of why I'm not doing it. But I just decided it just was not I just couldn't do it any longer. So I had a vision to host my own market and creative retreat. And that planning started in October of 2023. So very shortly after I decided I wasn't doing Cranberry Fest, um, actually, I should say probably at Cranberry Fest, when I made that decision, I started brainstorming, and that's when I had my vision of hosting my own market. And then the creative retreat just came about after I was, brainstorming it all through. But really, the planning started right away in 2023. And even though I worked on it for an entire year, you guys, coming up with a plan, coming up with my marketing, a budget, a location where I was going to host it, what vendors I wanted, the creatives I chose and their projects, I felt like I was getting everything in place. I still was not truly prepared for this venture. Looking back now, like months after the event has been over, I realized that I took on something that was so much bigger than myself. I really needed a crew, you guys. I've realized I accomplished something that typically takes a crew or a small army to accomplish. And for that, I am so proud of what I accomplished. Um, but I also realize I have to make changes if I want to do this in the future. And I did a podcast about it. I did a recap of the Vintage Soul Market and Creative Retreat and talk about it more in depth. But I am now in the midst of planning next year's event. And the first thing I'm adding is a crew of helpers. So, this is like the number one thing I learned. I can't split myself into two, four, or six people, but I can have that many people help me in the background. And I'm excited that I am going to officially kick it off in 2025. So be watching for more information about the event in 2025. So it was a huge success. Everyone loved it. I heard such great feedback. The creatives that I had teach there were amazing. I do have a bunch of creatives in mind for this upcoming year. And I just have to, give each of them a call and get things in order. But I know it's just going to be even more amazing this year. Um, but overall, you guys, this year has been a complete whirlwind. On top of these three huge goals that I accomplished, I also worked on so much other stuff, like on my website. I wanted to increase traffic and growth, which has been huge for my business. My website just keeps getting better and better. I'm learning more and more about it and how to what I can do to, optimize my SEO and do all the different things and drive people to my website because that's key. You can have a website, but if you're not driving people to your website, you're not going to see sales and you're not going to see growth. So, that is something that I will continue to work on year after year. I don't even have to put it on my goals, even though I do, because that is what's going to keep me going as well, driving people to my website. I finally settled on a CRM and plan to grow that in 2025. I actually I went from provider to different provider to different provider, and I was looking for the perfect one. And I finally this year settled on one, and that has been huge for me. The other thing, too, you guys, consistency on social media, showing up for your audience. And I do that each and every day. Social media, and, like, do I love social media? Absolutely not. Do I love showing up for my audience? Absolutely. Because it's a place where I love to create and inspire people. So you are going to still see me on YouTube. There's going to be possibly a pivot on YouTube into 2025. So be watching for that. I'm going to continue to show up on Facebook, Instagram, all the places you guys are going to find me. I'm going to keep going live. I actually had gone crazy in 2024. I was going live 3 times per week, scaled that back to 1 time per week. I might increase it to 2 times. YouTube, after the Vintage Soul Market and Creative Retreat, I was feeling slightly burned out. So I went from 2 videos down to one. I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to increase it back to 2 videos in 2025 or leave it at the one. It is all going to determine how and when I pivot things that's going to happen. So be watching for some amazing changes. They're going to be fun. You guys are going to love them. And it's going to just make things different. So I love it. Now, those are a lot of the good things that happen. And then you have to take a glance at, maybe where I fell a little short. Um, One of the things I wanted to do, and again, I feel like I'm confessing my sins, but I really have been wanting to kick off a blog. I have been talking about it forever, and it just didn't happen. And I didn't have enough hours in a day. And honestly, I'm not even sure I would have had enough brain capacity to even start another project, even if I had the hours, because there was so much going on in this brain with all those other projects and goals that I had that I just don't think it was a possibility. I also really wanted to focus on organization. And this is another area that is key to the success of a small business. You need to be organized in order to be successful. And I truly believe this because if you are unorganized, you are adding more steps, you are looking for things, it's time consuming. If you're organized and everything is right at hand, it makes your life so much easier. And you're not overbuying. I mean, it just helps you in so many areas. So, because I had taken on so much, I actually had to pause my whole organizational process. And I'm sad about that because I was making really good strides in that area. I was feeling really good. I mean, I was organizing so much and things were really coming together. And I felt like when I took on all those big goals, it just went to a complete screeching halt. So, 2025, I am going to be doing a lot more organizing. And then lastly, I pushed aside so many of those little tiny small goals that really needed to be a focus. They were just completely forgotten about since the big goals really took, like overtook every single minute in my entire year. It truly did. I feel like yeah, every single minute was overtaken by the three big goals. But as I reflect on the whole year, I'm very proud of what I accomplished, and I honestly would not change a thing I did in 2024. I feel like my business made great strides, huge leaps and bounds, and I'm just excited to see where 2025 takes me. And a new year is just right around the corner for everyone. And with that, a fresh slate happens. I always feel so good on January 1st. I know it sounds so silly, but I feel like January 1st is like a fresh start. It's like just a new beginning. I you know, I I've said that every single year and I will say it every single year because it does. I that's how I feel like, okay, January 1, starting over. No matter what happened the year before, I have a whole year to accomplish new goals. And I've already met with my membership group the past 2 weeks, and we brainstormed and we set our 2025 goals. Like I mentioned to my members, remember to set just a couple big goals and then some medium goals and some small goals to fit in between. Even one big goal truly could be enough in 1 year. Don't overdo it. And when I was listening to their goals last night, I was like, oh, some of them I had to reel them in. I'm like, do not play us on it. Do not schedule in too many big goals because you're going to feel like you didn't accomplish, like your medium and small goals. And you might not even accomplish some of the big ones because they're just too big. So I'm definitely going to be cutting back on my big goals for 2025. And then I always just say, remember to check in quarterly to see how you're doing throughout the year. Is that the only time I check in? Absolutely not. I have my goals broke down into stages, of how I want to accomplish each of my goals. And then, that's like, it's like I talked about the roadmap. I have a roadmap set up for each goal. So, like some of the big goals, they take a lot of steps to hit them. So I try to set timelines of when I want to hit each of those, steps to, make sure I'm just breaking it down and I'm actually hitting them. So I try to set a timeline. But what I'm really trying to say is don't just write your goals down and forget about them, until Q1 when, I force my members to do a Q1 check in. And then they all scramble and try to hit as much as they can. No, try to accomplish whatever you can in that first quarter, but keep your goals in the forefront. Keep them where you can't forget about them. And then you just remember you have a whole year. So work on them throughout the year. Lastly, my one last piece of advice about, scheduling, don't wait until Q4 to try and hit all of them. Q4 is when you should be focusing on what I consider our busiest time of the year to grab a piece of that retail pie, you guys, versus trying to hit a goal that you wrote down in December of the year before. You should be focusing on, Q4 because it's the busiest time for sales. And you have a whole year to work on your goals. So that is the last tip of advice about scheduling those. So, anyways, I hope you've learned at least one new thing in today's podcast. And I encourage you to set goals, reflect on them each and every year. And I want to know, you guys, in the comments, let me know one goal that you'd like to accomplish this year. And I wish each of you the very best of luck. And I know you're going to knock it out of the park. So, now, in next week's episode, you guys, I'll be interviewing Sylvia from Backyard Brushes. She's made several appearances on my Monday Night Lives. She is currently juggling a full-time job while running a successful business. And her business is well known for hosting workshops, and this has been huge for her small business. If you've been thinking about incorporating workshops into the mix of your small business, then this is an episode you guys don't want to miss. So watch for that next week. All right, you guys, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe if you are listening on any of the podcast platforms. And if you are watching this on YouTube, definitely like this. In the comments, let me know what you guys have been thinking. Share my podcast so other people can find out about it. And then remember, you can find me on all the other social platforms like Instagram and Facebook at Sonnets Garden Blooms. And I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.